All right, so maybe I need to change all of that. So hey, I'm welcome. I'm not sure if I'm live yet. Here, let's see. It's coming up. It's coming up. There it is. Maybe I need to change. Okay, so there I am. Hey, good morning to you. My apologies for being a little late today. Not like I'm gonna get docked and pay or anything, but I am a little late because apparently my power must have gone down yesterday, because when I came in here into my office to get online, everything was shut down. Everything. So yes, so it took me a while to get booted back up, to get on all that stuff. And I'm still straightening out my space. The space and my desk not being orderly had absolutely nothing to do with a power outage, but everything to do with the fact that I was running all day yesterday. I want to say it like that. I think that's what I was doing. Was just running. And so, yeah, now it's interesting because now I got new stuff on my page here. So I tell you, they are forever changing things, and it's really interesting how they change up things on a regular basis, so that the information that I have access to changes constantly. Good morning, Miss Stephanie.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good. I went back to sleep.
Oh, did you? Lucky you.
Not a good thing, but okay.
Sometimes it's just needed. I really do think that I know for me, I do push myself a lot of times, but I do think that we are too hard on ourselves. I think people sometimes are easier on us than we are on ourselves. So, like, yeah, if it's in you to go back to sleep, go back.
My goodness.
So, what was
vacation?
Huh?
That I need a vacation.
Okay, so yesterday I was whatever. Not whatever to you, but I was like whatever to that thought that I was going down that rabbit hole with. So how was your evening?
It was good.
Yeah. Good.
Yours?
I don't want to say it was unremarkable. Let's see. How was my day? You know what? I hung out with some friends from elementary school for a minute.
Okay.
And that's always interesting. It's always interesting. And the reactions you get from people for the things that you say. So on one level, people know that I do ministry stuff, right? But I think that most people, when you say that you do ministry stuff, it's like a narrow slit that they put you in, right? I always say that they put you in boxes, but there is kind of like a narrow little thing. And so just because I am a minister does not mean that I'm going to bind you in the name of Jesus or
what else?
Or start talking about that Satan is busy. I am not that girl. I am not that girl. I'm always like, oh man, let's shift the focus here. And so sometimes I get this feeling like people, you say a couple of things that don't jive with their system and they start like, okay, I can't even make eye contact with you no more. I love it. I love it. And
try introducing yourself to people and say you're a psychotherapist. What that's like.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, because somebody is always thinking that they on the table.
Exactly.
And yeah.
But I get it. Yeah, that's interesting. I was with classmates too. I'm a part of a committee for our class of 85, and I was working with them yesterday. So that's funny that we were both working with classmates yesterday.
Yeah. So.
Aww.
And so
you give them a new perspective.
Well, I have learned how to. So I think. Look, I personally think that I'm pretty good at reading people. And I do this thing like what I do is I go forward and then I back up, go forward, back up, go forward, back up. And so I have this tendency to kind of like try to feel the parameters of the resistance and know just enough to push and then just enough to draw back. Without necessarily changing what it is that I'm saying, but it's like, okay, that's for another day, you know? And it's interesting because a lot of times we look at long-term conversations versus short-term. I don't ever feel like I gotta come at you and ram you all in one day. You know, like I have a girlfriend who feels as if she can't let go of something until she has won a conversation. And that is bothersome. That is like a hang up from me, right? Because I'm just like, yeah, I'm not there. And I have no need to pretend that I'm there. I have no need to say, oh, you're right, or any of that stuff. Sometimes I have asked her the question, like, who are you trying to convince at this point, right? Because, I didn't put my stake in the ground right here, and I ain't going no further. I am that girl. I ain't going no further with you. But and so some of the we have had some, I don't want to say knockdown drag out fights because it's all in the terms of an argument, but we have had arguments where it seems like we are beating each other down. And and on the other side of it, it's like you look back and it's kind of comical, but during the midst of it, it's not.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I remember one day in particular, she was telling me, she was like, it's taking everything in me not to throw this drink in your face. Go for it, Alpha. I ain't gonna change my mind. It's not going to make you right and me wrong. It's going to simply be the same thing it was before or after. This is where we are. And I shall not be moved. Oh, I love her though. I love her, and you have people in your life, hopefully, that challenge you like that, that are and not always family, because family is easy to kind of have your spine matches with and come back, and because that they ain't going nowhere, right? They family, so they gonna be. But to have friends where you can say, whoo, like the last time I talked to her, we ended the conversation with me slamming you can't slam down a cell phone. That's the bad thing about it.
Right.
You know, why do you drive? And that's when I asked her, why do you try to drag me into your drama all the time? I don't have drama in my life. That's your drama. Ah! So it's good. It's good. It's cool. But man, she can sometimes just tap
take
dance.
you there.
Tap dance, girl. Like no other. So anyway, yay. I got that out. For whatever reason, I came in here talking about that today. Oh, my friends yesterday, I was feeling like they was doing me like this.
Oh.
but it's all good. It's all good. Because I don't want, one of the things that I don't like to do is be deceptive about who I am and how I think. You know that about me, right? And so I will say, you know, if I don't believe in Satan, I'm not going to sit there and have a whole conversation with you. Yeah, and I say, you know what, I don't ascribe to that thinking, right? I don't ascribe to that thinking. I mean, you know, and I don't always have to do it in a way that's challenging, but it's like, girl, that got no power in my life, right? It's, you know, whatever, you and that dude, go ahead. I don't see Satan everywhere.
Right. That
has no power in my life. So there. So yesterday when we ended up, we're still in this second chakra about the internal energy, but one of the things that I kind of talked about before we ended up is the possibility that we can close out this particular section today. But also that the questions at the end were really poignant to me, you know, just really nice. And so, yeah. So that is one of the things that I am,
I think also maybe it's good to start I don't know if you had a chance to look at when you get a chance to look at the questions for the third chakra, maybe you could start there, just going through them, because they are really good. And when I did the third chakra, after doing the second chakra, I answered I did the questions before reading the chapter. And then I read the chapter and did the questions again. But, you know, I told you yesterday I have an overachiever issue, so challenge, not an issue.
Okay. Well, you know, I when I'm taking a test, I have done that in the past so that I knew what I was looking for. And so what tended to happen to me is that I went through the chapter with the thought in mind of asking the questions rather than just kind of, and so what we're doing is we're kind of meandering our way through this. So if like her first question here in the self-examination is how do you define creativity? Now, if you thought that question when you began the chapter, would you answer the question differently later? Or would you just think about when you get to the end, like, how do you define creativity? Are you looking for it in the text is what I'm asking.
Oh, no. When I read the first set of questions for the first chakra and then these set of questions, I thought I would love to answer those questions of my own and then learn what she was teaching and then answer the questions again.
Okay.
So I answered them on my own. I didn't just read them, but I answered them on the third chakra. I answered them on my own, like my answers. And then I went back and read about the third chakra. Once I knew that the third chakra was about, you know, self-esteem and kind of the work that I do every day with people and the big giant chunk of the work that I've done for myself. So when I knew that that's what the chapter was about, I went back and did the questions and answered them on my own for myself, and then answered them according to the information that I learned.
And did that change? Did it change?
Yeah, it changed a lot. And so a lot of it was the same. A lot of it was affirmation, but yeah, some of them did change. Mm-hmm. And some of them were my little red pen. More work to do.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, that is that we can do that when it comes down to the next chapter. So let's so maybe okay, so let's do that now. Let's talk about the self-examination questions and then finish up the rest of this section.
Okay.
And I don't know, you know, because this is something that we are presenting to other people. So if
just keep it the program. So, think about it.
Okay. So let me see. Because I don't know if these go in succession. Oh, there was something that was a really good quote yesterday that I read. So so she asked a question out of the questions number 9. So a lot of these questions I think are really good. Like, does money have an authority over you? Do you make compromises that violate your inner self for the sake of financial security? So we talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Yes. Then, and if I had answered that question before knowing the text, I would have answered it my truth. And then I would have found that, you know, that answer is yes, I do. And I did for many years because of my narrative about finances and my narrative about hustling, my narrative about grinding, my narrative about providers and being a provider and being provided for. Like, my narrative was what it was, and because of what it was, there was power that I was losing in my second chakra.
Well, and honestly, I don't know that we ever free ourselves from that. I think that we do things knowingly versus, or consciously versus unconsciously. So when she says, do you make compromises that violate your inner self for the sake of financial security? Certainly we still do, right? But it's measured now. It's understood now. And so the compromise is sometimes what I do. I can speak for me. What I do is I look at it and I think to myself about the compromise that I'm making. And if I am taking and selling off a piece of my personal power for it, I've almost got locked into my mind that it's not going to be a permanent thing. But I keep in the back of my mind, just like I did with, you know, well, you know what I'm talking about. I've done in relationships, I've done in business. I keep it locked in my mind that this is going to go so far or for so long and not past that. And then I don't violate that agreement with myself. I know that it is something that is finite and something that I am aware of. And I take steps in that awareness, you know, not sitting up saying that it doesn't matter, because I think then when we think that it doesn't matter and we know that it does, I think we pay a higher price for that awareness.
That's good.
So yeah, so my compromises in the places where I make concessions, it's like I never lose track of the fact that that this is, it's almost like when I'm playing a chess game and you make a move and then you don't take your hand off of the chess guy, because you know, if you take your hand off, then that means that the move is final. I'm sitting here with my finger still on it saying, okay, I know this ain't gonna work. I know that this is something I need to change, but this is a temporary spot. It's a temporary thing, and I'm gonna move it back soon. So and so yeah, sometimes we do things that, that's why I'm all over the board for the moment. Sometimes it's always interesting to me, people who get married going into the marriage knowing that it won't work. Like they have some inkling, or they think, oh, I can deal with this, or I can change this. And so they have an inkling that this is not going to work. And yet they do it anyway. And to me, that's a permanent, you're taking a permanent stance to something that should not, that should not be permanent. And I had a friend of mine, there was a guy who, he married this woman who, actually I was friends with her first, right? And he married her. And he told me, he was like, the reasons why I married her was all about finance and money. And he kind of articulated what it was that, not even that was like, I didn't get the sense that he was attracted to her, but rather what she brought with her. I've actually known a few guys like that, now that I'm saying it.
I believe that of one of my husbands. So
yeah, the packaging, right? So it was all of that, and not necessarily the person.
Right. And
so when it didn't turn out the way that they expected, or when they got her with the other stuff, it became problematic. And then you want to sit around and point the finger at her like she's the demon in the relationship. And it's like, dude, own your part. If you can say to yourself, oh, I married her because of this, or I married her because of that, own your part and stop making it seem like, you didn't go in this with eyes wide open. You just don't ever think that it's going to turn out the way. So you said that was one of your husbands, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, he confessed, if that's a thing to confess, but he shared that towards the ending of our connection, that there was an objective, a very shrewd businessman, and we became friends, if you want to call it that. And so yeah, he shared that with me. Honest, committed, loyal, amazing mother, had a business head, good head on my shoulder. And yeah, and so there it is. And in exchange, I had to deal with him. And I was crazy about him, but I understood towards the end, because I invite honesty, that's what the intention was. And it's like, when you hear language like, you were more like a sister to me towards the end. It was like, it explains so much though.
Right.
It explains so much, but I respect his honesty. Don't respect, the choice that he made. Like, I don't think that was fair at all. And it also, my statement now is, when I meet people, especially guys that want to date, to myself is, can I trust this person with my knower? because those years of you screwing with my knower, because I'm always asking questions like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Is this in my imagination? And then that's cognitive dissonance, where you're clear, but you're not clear because the other person is like, no, that's not happening. Gaslighting, to the millionth degree, So, so I know that experience very well. And I don't have to guess because it was made clear to me, at the end that, okay, white flag, let me just tell you, you were right all this time. And I can't pretend anymore. I can't do this anymore. Or, the kids are grown and raised. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for raising, helping me raise these boys and building a beautiful, amazing life. And gotta run,
And so it's I guess for me, today Rhonda asked that question about, is it okay to love somebody that doesn't love you, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, man, I do that all the time, all day, every day. I love people who I don't even know yet, right? But then the question becomes, for me, it was like, let me turn it back onto myself, though. What does it look like to love me? And
that was the beautiful aspect of that 20-year connection, is that I got to have that experience because I did everything by myself. I mean, when I say everything, triple underscore, I traveled alone. I took my children by myself. I did a lot of stuff by myself. And so that forced me to be in that space to learn to just be like, blame it on whatever he wanted to blame it on, work, depression, whatever. There was sometimes I had to just do a lot of stuff by myself. And I think that it has created the amazing person that I am today, to be able to just hold on to myself and tell my truth as much as I can in a relationship, for sure. Because I just know that feeling of, I just gotta give it back to me.
Right.
I gotta give it back to me. And I don't know the totality of that, because I think that's something that we all grow into. It just gets bigger and better, I think. But my story is.
But it's constant. It's constant work. It's constant work. Yeah. It doesn't, it doesn't let up. It doesn't, the questions don't end. The self-examination does not end.
No. And I'm sorry for cutting you off, but anyway.
No, I don't know if you did. That is gone. So, but yeah, it is, I think that when she was talking about it, I was like, I sat there in the space because a lot of times we never investigate what it means, what love looks like, or what it means, not just towards others, but towards ourselves as well. And so if you never look at it without looking away, mind you, if you never look at it and just stare at it, it might seem like the love is in the doing and not just in the being. What does it mean to love me? And if I am asking myself that question, if I'm asking myself that question, even as I move into a relationship, if I love myself, is this acceptable? Is this okay? Is this what I want for myself? Is this what I'm going to do? Am I going to make this a permanent thing when it appears to be temporary? When I'm uncertain about it, am I going to put myself through it? There's all of those questions. And then the other honest truth about that is like I was saying in this morning with Cicely Tyson, said this quote. She was like, just because you turn off a light doesn't mean that there's not a current that still flows.
Right. Exactly.
It's just not burning bright. It's not,
that's right.
It's not there, but it's not gone. It's not, it doesn't mean that somebody cut the wires out the wall and plastered over it. It's still a current there. And I think that accepting that as part of the truth, like I have dated people that I will always love. I love them anyway. There is a base level of love, which I have for everyone, right? And there is something about the intimacy of the relationship and what we've shared that I truly love. And so, I got some folks that I love, but that don't necessarily mean that I'm gonna override my love for Sandra and subject myself to something that doesn't serve me. On a regular basis, because to me that wouldn't be loving myself.
And I think that people show up in our journey to help to sculpt that self-love experience, and just because you love them doesn't mean that you are available to them or for them or for that type of connection. It changes. It changes. I remember when you and I were having a conversation and you were like, oh, you're still in love with your ex-husband. And I'm like, what the hell? No, I'm not. I'm like, what? I have an appreciation for the journey, but in love, I am not, and it's because I knew our circumstance, I love being a mother and I love that experience. That 20 years was yummy to me for what it gave for me. But to the in love part, I don't know about that anyway, but that part, like, it's like I can love the experience and I can love the honesty and I can love the growth that came with that. But it's like, now I'm ready for another tool of shaping me. That tool, that chisel was fine, but now I'm ready for the little edge or the little knife that kind of makes the little lines in there and creates all the detail. And that's kind of how I feel about my journey with my ex-husband, is that he gave me the shaping permission and all. He not actually raised, because he'll say he rode on my coattail, whatever. But he raised a level of expectation for me, for myself and those around me. And now it was just time. I feel like our experiences with other people, even raising children, gives me a different experience about what love is. And it helps to shape another aspect of love for myself. And that has been my experience. And it just made me have that experience and see it different.
Yeah. So okay. So here's my thing. Okay. I don't remember the conversation, right?
You don't?
No.
Oh, well, I do.
I know you do, because it apparently made an impression. I don't remember the conversation, but I know that you used to talk about that relationship a lot and in flowery terms. And so hopefully that conversation served its purpose when we had it.
What? I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm just saying, I just hope that the conversation served its purpose when we had the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because what I, how I am, I typically just say what the heck is on my mind, what presents itself to my mind, without sitting up there trying to psychoanalyze stuff. I am, I ain't the one to be sitting up ruminating over it. It's like, it came up, it came out.
Yeah, because I think that sometimes if you don't have a nasty or a negative conversation about an ex-partner, people make the assumption. You're not the only person who, well, yes, you are the only person that's ever said that to me. But I think that people make the assumption that, like, I just went to Kansas for my birthday and everybody's like, oh, so are you going to see Rob? I'm like, well, he doesn't even live there anymore. And it's not somebody that I want to go see. That's not the first person that pops in my mind. I lived in Kansas for 7 years. Why would I, but people make the assumption because I don't have a negative thing to say. I'm not negatively tearing him down, and I don't have it in my heart that you know, that, oh, she must still, no, it's not that kind of party. But I appreciate what I am or who I became because of that amazing connection. It was hard.
Yeah.
You know, I just shared with you what he said, the intention. So,
yeah. Girl, I think I mentioned on here or someplace that I was in love with a guy in college. I still love him, right? But I was in love with this guy in college and we were best friends. And then one day he tells me, when I asked him, I was like, well, how come you never date me? Like, yeah, I'm watching you with this person and that person, and I don't understand. We're so perfect together. Why have you never dated me? And he said to me, you're too masculine for me. Girl, I was on the floor. Like, I don't know if he knew that was like yes, he did know that it was like because he came back later. He's a psychiatrist now himself. got his little I don't want to call it little because he worked on that darn thing. He's in Chicago.
Okay.
And he worked on that for years and a number of different colleges. But he came back and apologized. And he says, I didn't have another word for it at the time. You know, he was like, I didn't know how to explain the energy that you had other than to say that it was, other than to describe it as masculine. And he was saying, but I wasn't saying that you're masculine. Saying that I felt overwhelmed by, you know, the spirit that is me, that the energy that I bring. And so he said that he described it as masculine. And so he apologized years later. But at the time I was devastated. I was like, ain't I a woman? Like, what part of me are you looking at that you don't see woman? This S on my chest, I said that I am not woman. Jeez. So I get it. And, well, yeah. Yeah, girl. So I know. I know. I
was driving home this morning, so I could not comment around this question, but it was very like near and dear to me. I'm like, that's a whole nother subject. That's a chapter in the book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what else do you think about that though?
I think that is real. And I think I don't think that it's always associated with pain. As a mother, I can say that, because sometimes your kids, my mom used to think that what we did was personal against her, you know, but it's not. You just love people where they are. Friends. I got sisters. I got a sister that I lived with that was hard that year in Shaker. And yet I loved her. Ooh, I feel like that experience with her was like worse than my divorce, because I shared so much juicy stuff with us. Oh my goodness. And to see our dynamics take that shift. I was devastated and I was like shocked, but my love for her was just so even my second chakra is like moving right now. The love that I have for my sister, and I still have it for her, but our dynamics had to change, and I don't like that, but it's what it is. But I still love her like to death. Like our connection was so juicy. It was just crazy to me. And when we had this experience with my father in Alabama, it was just like instant. We just like showed up and did what we need to do with each other, for each other. And, you know, and I just was like, oh, you know, but I know where she is and the ability to do that with me. And I was able just to leave it where it is. But so I think you can love and be in love, male or female. I was just like if I was in love, I was in love with my sister. And I still am. I just love her to death. But there's something about our connection, like we had another spiritual life together, doing some amazing stuff. And I cannot wait to the day that I can remember it, because it was so yummy. But I don't have to have that love back. I understand now that I cannot get that in return. It can't be reciprocated from that source. But I think that yeah.
So wait a minute. So I said that it sounded like the question came from a place of pain, which I think when the question is uttered, I think that is why
someone's asking
the question, right?
Okay.
So I don't know if it is, if you're in your pain, then you ask the question. But if you're not, you know that you can love any old body, and it's okay if they don't love you back, because your love is not predicated upon whether or not they give a shit about you or not.
I agree.
And a parent will show up, I don't care how many times.
Yes.
You know, whatever they demonstrate.
And you don't question that.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's why I was saying that that question for me came out of pain. Because otherwise you don't even ask if it's okay, because love is just something like water. It just will.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true.
Yeah, it is unrelenting.
And you don't even have to ask. It's like, yep, I can love you.
Yeah.
I just can. Yeah. I don't even know what this is.
Right.
So yeah, I got you. You're right. Yeah.
I'm not so tied to an issue of right or wrong, but I think that if we look deep at our experience, when we ask ourselves the question, is because we are, that person has hurt us some kind of capacity or way. And otherwise, what's the need for the question? I'm just loving you. And look, and as Lee Coleman would say, and ain't nothing you can do about it. Just ain't nothing you can do about it. So don't even trip. So let me, we've been chatting here, but let me jump into this on 162, because I want to read this actual paragraph, because I want, it landed so good with me. It was a poignant thing, even though I didn't highlight the whole thing. She says, during workshops, when I ask participants to describe their relationship to power, the atmosphere usually changes drastically or dramatically. The tension only makes me want to pursue this question more. Most people shift positions in the chair in order to cover up their second chakra. They cross their legs, for example, or they lean over their second chakra, placing their elbows on their thighs and holding up their head with their hands. They look at me in a way that says, my, what an intriguing question, but don't come any closer. And yesterday when I was talking, I was remembering how a lot of times we cover up our second chakra, put our hands in front of our crotches or do all kind of stuff so that we are in this sense of protecting an area that seems vulnerable to us. And so what it does for me is it reminds me to pay attention to our body language, like, even the things that light up and when they light up, or turn over and when they turn over, or, just to bring your awareness to it. It doesn't mean that you have to live in that space, but to be aware that that is happening is really interesting. So, she goes on to say, when we offer responses, the first chorus invariably includes descriptions of power as the ability to maintain control over one's environment, or as a vehicle of getting things done. And so, I'm intrigued about the question about power, and and what people believe it is, right? That's part of it. What they believe it is, where it comes from, how to generate it. We know how to lose it. We know how to relinquish it. But there is always this question about, how do we increase our power? The second chakra course describes power as the internal strength to control oneself. Now, let me, because one of the things I talk about in my trainings, I do trainings all the time on resilience. And one of the things that I talk about in resilience is that, part of knowing thyself says, man, this situation that I'm in or I'm in the midst of, it has the power to wound me.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. But what I know is that I heal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you embark on things, or you knowingly go into things knowing that this can go wrong, and it can go wrong fast. It can go to the left, right? But when you know you have the ability to heal, mm-hmm. that it don't, that it don't break you, then it makes it okay, I guess, for you to be in that space. Remember when we were younger and they used to break children's legs if they were bow-legged, and then put braces on them to straighten them out? Mm-hmm. Or their feet, because they were pigeon-toed, they would break them and then set them or reset them. Mm-hmm. Oh, that seems like torture, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But it's the same kind of knowing that knows that repair is possible.
Yes.
Right? That sometimes what happens in the moment is really like ripping that Band-Aid off of something. It's painful, but you survive.
Yes.
And so you do it anyway. And so I think that when you trust or have faith in yourself and in the universe, when you have faith, that is part of the that bringing together those ideas around power. The most striking feature of all combined responses is the majority define power as having an object. Mm-hmm. Whether that object is something in the external world or the self. So, am I about to cross my legs? Not because I'm trying to protect my second child.
Okay.
Sometimes it helps me sit up higher in the chair when I cross my legs. I did that consciously too. Like, do I want to cross my legs? Although wait a minute. So, although internal power is certainly recognized as the ideal, in practice, it is less popular than external power.
Mm-hmm. We talked about it yesterday. Mm-hmm.
First, because external power is so much more practical. And second, because internal power in some ways requires giving up our relationship to the physical world. Mm-hmm. So you said we talked about this yesterday. How did we interpret the majority defined power as having an object? Do we really drill down on that object?
Yeah, because we talked about how people, us, whatever, we see things externally, or we have things externally, and we associate that with power, and that the internal stuff nobody kind of questions, or no one actually celebrates, if you will. It doesn't become a topic of conversation. But if I look like I have power on the outside, if I create the illusion that I'm okay on the outside, then the internal stuff doesn't get questioned, or no one, well, it's not customary, let me say, for us to tap in and say, but what's your internal power like, ma'am or sir? You know, we talked about your friend with the big toys and the money and
yeah. Okay, now I remember. That's bad that I don't remember that conversation. Maybe because I'm in my head about something else. Let me give you an example though. Yesterday I went to the store, Mark's, right? And when I go in the store, I wear a mask. I still wear my mask, even though I've had both of my shots. I wear a mask in the store. And when I got in line and I had a cart, and in my cart I had, you know, I had maybe about 10 items, but not a lot of stuff. And so there was a guy black guy, you know, he seemed like a, you know, decent looking brother. He had on a mask too, so I really couldn't see his face. He had on a mask and he had on a hat, but he was standing there holding a case of water on his shoulder. That's all he had. And so I said, oh, you can go ahead and go in front of me. Cause I was like thinking to myself, he gonna hold that water like that. And he was like, he said, no, he says, I got to work on my muscles. And I said, dude, I said, if you ain't got muscles by now, you ain't gonna have muscles. I always say smart ass stuff to people, don't I? I supposed that need. I said, if you ain't got them by now, you know. And so he kind of laughs, and he was like, you know, he kind of made it seem like, yeah, it's a process, whatever. I said, you know, that's what I would say to my 13-year-old nephew. I said, you can put the water down if you want to, just, you know, you can go next. No, I'll wait. So, okay, whatever. So we kind of laughed and joked a little bit going through the line, you know, and I checked out. And so when I get to my car, you know, I'm putting stuff in my trunk, but Jessica called me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm putting stuff in my trunk, but now I'm laughing and talking with Jessica when I see this black Benz, the shiny, roll up on me. And here he is. And he
muscle man.
He pulls up on me and he says, I wanted to show you my muscle.
Wow.
And you know me, I was like, boy, bye. Because the moment I saw him pull up in his car talking about his muscles, I was like, this dude don't have any internal power. He want to show me his objects to try to convince me that he had some
power. Right.
I was like, you know, for me, I'm like, boy, bye. I kept talking to Jessica. I just laughed and I said, nice. And I kept talking to Jessica. But I registered, it registered in my mind. I got to show you my car. I got to show you my muscle. Come on, dude. Come on. I guess he don't listen to Morning Glory.
No, he doesn't. At least he didn't listen yesterday. He walked right into that.
It was hilarious to me. Oh, that's one of them things. Let me call Stephanie. Can you just sit right there? Let me take a picture of that.
Hold up. You need to put your picture in his book.
Wait a minute. And the funny thing is as he drove off, I noticed that he had a vanity plate too, but I didn't, you know, I don't remember what it was, but it was a vanity plate, said something like, you know, like really. It was just hilarious.
I get it. And it's so true. And it's something for us to be cognizant about.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, that is and then, you know, there's people who view themselves as being so far above people that they perceive themselves as being generous for not noticing your deficits. And
Wow.
and sometimes that is based on what they perceive that they have. And so they are caught in their judgments because, wow, you know, they're so superior because they
Wow.
got stuff. I think it's hilarious. But really, I think, you know, yeah, it's hilarious, especially when people aren't conscious about it.
And they don't know, like, oh, anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. At this point in our evolution, she says, both as a culture and as individuals, we can recognize that external or physical power is necessary for health.
Mm-hmm.
Health is a direct consequence of spiritual and therapeutic principles we absorb into our everyday life. Both contemporary spirituality and psychotherapy emphasize that personal power is fundamental to material success and spiritual balance.
Mm-hmm.
It is involved directly in the creation of our personal worlds as well as our health.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes on to tell this story about David Chalaif Paladin,
Mm-hmm.
his real name. And she shared it because he passed away in 1986. And in it is a testimony, she says, of human potential to achieve a quality of internal power that defies the limit of physical matter. And so she tells this story about this man who was a Native American, and he grew up as a Navajo Indian on a reservation during the 20s and 30s. And she talks about how, as a teenager, he left home and wandered around for a few months, got a job on a merchant ship.
He was an addict. He was an alcoholic too.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important point. By the time he was 11, he was an alcoholic. Yes. I should have mentioned that too. By the time he got a job on marine merchant ships and he was only 15, and he passed off as being a little older. And so he traveled ports around the Pacific Ocean. And one of his hobbies was to sketch. And so, which is an amazing hobby. And a lot of people have that same kind of hobby. Some people doodle, some people sketch, and they sketch what they see. And he basically had sketched something that he saw where the Japanese had these bunkers in the South Sea, and he sketched it, and it says that his drawings fell into the hands of somebody in the military, and then he was drafted into the military. And instead, where he thought that he would continue his work as an artist, but instead he became part of what they call the secret operation against the Nazis. And she says that they enlisted Navajo and other Native Americans to spy as a spy network. And he ended up being behind enemy lines. And what they used was they used that language, the Navajo Indian language, to basically convey messages so that the messages couldn't be intercepted or interpreted or anything. And so he ended up being tortured. They said that he nailed his feet to the floor.
The Nazis actually captured him. Mm-hmm.
They nailed his feet to the floor, forcing him to stand for days in that condition. And he was sent to an extermination camp. And while he was at that camp, he ran into a guy who he had befriended on one of those merchant ships, who was working as a Nazi. And just when they were about to ship him off to be exterminated, he serendipitously or divinely ran into a man, and that man ended up sending him to another camp, which saved his life. So he became a prisoner of war and not just somebody that they were about to kill. And he spent some time in that camp before he was rescued by American soldiers. And then he still spent more time in a coma once he came out of captivity. He spent more time in a coma. And then when he finally woke, he couldn't walk or function or anything like that, right? And so basically, he, like many, thought that he wouldn't make it, that he was going to die.
Couldn't walk. He was in braces from his the top of his pelvis, I'm assuming, down. He couldn't. They said that his legs were just like noodles, and he'd been in a coma for 2 years too. So,
yeah. So he was basically returning to the reservation to kind of, say his goodbyes, and this is where I've read her talk about stuff like this before. About people reclaiming their power. She says when he arrived at the reservation, his family and friends were horrified at what had become of him. They gathered together and held council to figure out how to help him. After the council meeting, the elders approached David, yanked the braces off of his legs, tied a rope around his waist, and threw him into the deep water. David, call your spirit back, they commanded. Your spirit is no longer in your body. If you can't call your spirit back, we will let you go. Now, no one can live without their spirit. Your spirit is your power. And so David said that calling his spirit back was the most difficult task he ever had to undertake. It was more difficult than enduring having my feet nailed to the floor. I saw the faces of those Nazi soldiers. I lived through all those months in the prison camp.
Yep.
I knew that I had to release my anger and my hatred. I could barely keep myself from drowning, but I prayed to let the anger out of my body. That's all I prayed, and my prayers were answered. So she says that he recovered full use of his legs and went on to become a shaman, a Christian minister, and a healer. He also returned to his drawings and earned a reputation as a highly talented artist. She said David radiated a quality of power that felt like grace itself. Having survived a confrontation with the darkest side of power, he transcended that darkness and spent the rest of his life healing and inspiring people to call back their power.
Yes.
From experiences that drain the life force from their bodies.
Yeah. And when I share with you about that experience that I had with the second chakra and the female stuff that I was going, that was the prayer, that was the mantra that was required of me, because I, lost 20-year marriage. I just had a whole bunch of loss from that energy space, and that it is a very simple prayer, but it is life-giving. It is a life-giving prayer. So when they talk about internal power and external power,
that reminds me of a situation that I had some years ago with a friend of mine Ironically. And, so sometimes I have these friendships where there's yeah, Sarika, hey, hola.
Wow.
Sometimes there is, I have these groups of friends. And so, whatever the case may be, we all have had friends that are, anyway. So one of my friends came back and told me that another of my friends was sleeping with the guy that I was actually involved with at the time. So I was, of course, I was just like, what, blown away. Like, are you tripping? Are you serious? Right? Like, no, that couldn't be happening. And so what I gleaned from the situation is that she did have a friendship with the guy that I was dating that was separate from me and separate from my awareness, right? And so I asked him about it, and I didn't get any satisfactory answer. And I asked her about it, and I kept going back and forth and asking, because I was just in one of those places, as you can imagine. And rather, just kind of distraught about it. And she said to me one day, now I don't even remember what he told me. He was like, you know what, I'm not going to have this conversation with you anymore. Right? That was kind of like his thing. I ain't having this conversation with you no more. Don't ask me about it again. So when I said something to her about it, I remember her saying, you're going to make me actually go ahead and do it. If you're going to accuse me, or if you always thinking that I'm going to do it, I'm going to go ahead. I might as well go ahead and do it. And I'm thinking, what is that? Right? So now here I was in this thing. And so I remember praying the prayer, because I was praying about it. And I was like, you know what, God, I love both of these people. And I need to know whether to go right or go left. Am I supposed to opt out of this, or am I supposed to, And so I needed to find some type of peace, right? And that peace for me didn't mean that I needed to cut them both out of my life at the time. I knew that I valued both of them. But I really wanted to understand, is this something that's real, or is this something that somebody planted the seed in my head and is festered and grown?
No. Mm-hmm.
And so I worked with it. I prayed about it. I actually started to ask myself the question, what is this relationship to me? Is it what he does with his body on a given day?
Mm.
So it was like one of those things where I felt like I was really struggling around the idea and didn't necessarily have anything to turn to other than prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the other side of that, I came out on the other side of that a much stronger person. And it was years later before I understood that no, they didn't actually have any sexual activity, but the fact that I felt violated by the relationship that they developed was something that was very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was extremely interesting to me. And so it continues to sort of inform my relationships today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was really interesting, and it was interesting perception of a violation. So yeah. So in a sense, to me, it was this thing of, I felt, and the reason why it came up is because I felt very disempowered.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of that. I felt as if I was the one that was ass out. And everybody was just like, yeah, I'm not even, I'm not going to have that conversation with you. And, and her response over
think what you want, do what you want to do with what you think about. I'm not going to disclose anything. Yeah.
Right. And so it was just like, I felt like, I saw myself like being down on the ground and just, left for ha, and then walking away laughing at me. That was what I felt. And so part of my prayer work around that was reclaiming for myself what it meant. And so eventually I felt myself get up to my knees and then stand up on my feet and then stand up and straighten up my back and square my shoulders in the midst of that. And so for me, it became this kind of thing, to call your power back and to know that. And so that's why I know when I tell people I'm a survivor, I've been through some stuff. I've been through some stuff where a friend of mine actually did, sleep with the guy that I was dating. And, and you go through stuff where you feel like for days you can't even get up or get out the bed.
Days, years.
Well, I got out of the bed. It didn't take me years to get out of the bed.
Well, not get out of the bed, but I mean, just that moving, that motion, that when you stop feeling like you moving through quicksand, like the motion is like, I'm here, but I'm here, but I'm here, but
And so I got resurrection power, right?
That's good.
Resurrection power. So
that's good.
So it makes me a lot more confident in my ability to be able to endure things that people perceive as traumatic. And so whether it's loss or betrayal, these things are stuff that it can either devastate you or it can make you stronger, right?
Well, I think that if you show up in the right spaces, it's going to make you stronger. I don't think that life, this universe, leaves us to a place of complete powerlessness. I think we have to we are always given information to say, call your power back. Call your power back. That first chakra, the tribe, it doesn't have to be your family of origin, but you come into circles, and, being left in the middle of the country when I'm all about family, and now it's just me all by myself, no partner, no nothing, in the middle of the country. You somehow, life brings you a tribe, and they just usher you and cheer you on to call your spirit back. So, and that's the internal power. And I think that everybody is given that measure of opportunity. I do. But
everybody doesn't always take it when it's
offered. Don't. And maybe they don't recognize it. No.
Yeah. So sometimes people dwell there for a bit.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
And that's why we have conversations such as these, to remind you that you have the ability to pull yourself back, to pull that power back. So let me just read this real quick, and then we are going to consider ourselves closed out of this one. Is that okay? Okay. So the core issue of uniting the dualistic energies of our relationships is to learn how to honor one another, using the energy of the second chakra, the creative force of the Safra of Yasad, and the symbolic sight of the sacrament of communion. We learn to cherish the sacred unions we form with each other through the days of our lives. So much of the way we respond to the external challenges is determined by how we respond to ourselves. In addition to all the relationships we have with people, we must also form a healthy and loving relationship with ourselves, a task that belongs to the energy of the third chakra. And so with that, tomorrow we will be moving on to this third chakra. And these questions for self-examination are powerful. We are in Anatomy of the Spirit. If you, if you, people have told me, oh, I got the book. Some people will get the audio book, and then they'll say, oh, I wonder if this audio book is abridged or not, blah, blah, blah. Right. Okay. So yeah, and then you don't get all of this.
It doesn't take it. Yeah. No. Yeah.
So but the questions are really powerful. We will we'll keep those questions at the forefront of our minds as we move through this. Tomorrow we'll be here same time, hopefully on time, 7:15, between 7:15 7:20. We will see you then, y'all. Love and blessings to you.
Love and blessings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks. Have an amazing day.
You too.
You look gorgeous, by the way.
I
am. Yeah. You're welcome.
Bless your heart. All right. I will see y'all tomorrow.
All right. Bye-bye.